second.
Hello, Professor Pulver here. We now hope to unravel some of the mysteries in understanding the sociological perspective known as symbolic interactionism or symbolic interaction. For many students, this is the more abstract theoretical perspective, but I hope we can see how it applies to the real world by the time we close this presentation. To begin, I'd like to take you to a fictional illustration, which I believe gets to the root of how the perspective sees the world. Many people have interest in fantasy or science fiction, or in books or stories which imagine futuristic or challenging scenarios. Let's pretend together that an extremely large nuclear holocaust has taken place, which has literally wiped out populations across the globe, except for a very tiny, small area. It appears that this tiny group of people have survived the explosions and the radioactivity, and they find themselves to be 120 in number. Over time, they realize there are no other survivors. As they gather together after this tragedy, can you imagine the kinds of things they would need to decide as a group of people? Now remember, for all intents and purposes, if the race is going to perpetuate itself, these 120 people need to provide a way for it to happen. So let's examine at least some of the things they might have to decide. Obviously, they're going to look at what language are we going to speak? What are the kinds of roles that people will play? What will the females do? What will the males do? Who will mate with who? And will there be any mating at all? Who is going to lead? Perhaps they would say, we're tired of the politicians leading, and we're tired of the professors teaching. We are going to do this ourselves. They would not only determine how they would speak, but also who would work, how will things be provided, who will do what. They would be determining who would have sex with whom and under what circumstances. They would determine whether we would wear clothes or not. Would they wear certain kinds of clothes? What would certain things mean? Would an earring in this ear mean a particular thing or not? How about earrings in two ears? Would they be having children, or would they decide not to have them? Would they decide to clone themselves? Or just what would they decide should be done? And how would they carry out these various interactions in this new society? In this new circumstance, they are actually beginning a brand new culture. And in that process, will decide over and over many things about how they want things to be. Notice then that this is the micro level perspective, which says we are going to get together in a small group and we're going to decide what everything means. And the biggest thing perhaps that we will decide is what language are we going to speak? What is going to be the values, the symbols that we will use, and what will they mean? In this new culture, will the thumbs up sign mean something positive? Or will it mean, I hate your guts? You will have to decide, because you are now building society from the bottom up. And in the most minute sense, each family is a culture or a society in and of itself. And each family decides how they're going to operate. So after discussing the nuclear holocaust situation and also mentioning aspects of how cultures are formed, let's now take a crack at a definition of this perspective. We can define this as a perspective which views society as a product of the everyday interactions of individuals, and that society is composed of symbols that people use to establish meaning, develop their views of the world, and to communicate with one another. So all the actions then that we have one with another depend upon us interpreting the behavior of a person according to whatever kinds of rules are set up. This is also based on the idea that an individual's interpersonal relationships are the most important aspects of society, and that this interaction relies on shared symbols and shared meanings. For example, there are many ways of seeing the relationship between husband and wife, men and women in the workplace, or between children and their parents, all based upon these shared meanings. We also have symbols that we share in society, such as a flag, or a motto, or a pledge of allegiance that we might do. We also develop gestures in a society and assign meanings to them. We saw the thumbs up sign, but what does it really mean? We decide that, and it can even change over time. The meaning of words can also evolve into new things, such as the word gay, which has gone from meaning a state of happiness to a more modern usage indicating attraction to the same sex. This perspective we're talking about also argues that no social condition is a social problem until a significant number of influential or powerful individuals agree that the problem, is contrary to the common good. You see, with symbolic interactionism, you are creating the meaning for your society as a group of people. So, if as a majority group you begin to feel that change should be a certain way or come to value some new idea or experience, then as you influence the society as a whole to embrace these things, then you have created new meanings, and that nearly everyone shares now, and even some new symbols that you may use. So individuals' perceptions can change, and they vary. Imagine, for example, a survey taken in the early 1900s on individuals' attitudes concerning homosexuality. Imagine with me what that survey might have come up with in terms of attitudes. Now, fast forward to the year 2010 and take the same survey. The question that we would ask is this: have the results changed? The results likely have changed, and that is because we have new meanings in our society currently. Our society and culture are evolving. So, society emerges from the construction of the reality by individuals in everyday life. Further, these theorists are interested in assessing how a specific social problem comes to be defined that way. So, whenever you are looking at things through this perspective, remember, this is a micro-level perspective. You are looking at how people define something as being important. So whenever you see someone influencing someone else to think a new way, or to come up with a new meaning on something, they are using principles within symbolic interaction theory to do that. Sometimes you hear someone say, well, we don't do things that way anymore. Well, that's because things have changed, because things have been defined differently, or the meanings have changed. Things are in the eye of the beholder. Perception is an important part of this. We also have this idea that I shape society and society shapes me. It's a mutual interaction. We also see in this perspective the importance of non-verbal interaction. Anytime we are looking at how people act when they are not saying anything, we are operating in this perspective. For example, you have gone up and down staircases in college, university, or in a school setting. Is there a place you are supposed to be walking when you are going up the staircase or down it? Is there a place you're supposed to stand when you are on an elevator when there are 4 people in it? Are there rules that you don't even have to be verbally discussing or reinforcing, that you simply just understand? This is what we are exactly talking about here. We have these shared ideas. Whenever one of these becomes violated, then we know that something has gone wrong. And it is really a weird thing. In fact, comedians actually use what is a violation of what is expected in a given situation as normal as a way of getting to their punchline. So, we go into situations and we expect things to be a certain way and all of a sudden it isn't that way, and because it is out of the ordinary, it is funny. Well, how did we know it was out of the ordinary? Because we know what the meaning should be of that. We know how the behavior usually is or should be, and we know how our group has defined it and how we are to interact with one another. I hope this has been helpful in seeing the central role individuals and groups play in constructing the societies and cultures they live in. If you want a fun and illuminating exercise, try looking for the meanings and definitions of life, the norms and values, and the uniquely shared ideas that the family you grew up in has about life. This is Professor Pulver giving you a thumbs up sign as we sign off and hoping that we have the same meaning for this. If you want to review some of my other videos on the sociology theories, feel free to do so. Goodbye for now.